According to the Department of Justice, only about 40% of all crimes that are committed against indigenous people, those of color, and of Asian Americans ever is reported in the mainstream media. Today, we're going to look at one such case, the case of a woman who was in Las Vegas for the happiest day of her life to get married to her fiancé, who vanished in plain sight in the broad afternoon daylight on the Strip in Las Vegas. This case has been severely underreported by mainstream media, local news stations there in the Las Vegas area, and the Metropolitan Police Department in Las Vegas reported on it for a total and did press updates a total of 2 days. 2 days since September 3rd. In this case, Reatha Finkbonner disappeared in Las Vegas, right on the Strip, in the middle of the afternoon. The last known contact with Reatha Finkbonner was when she asked to borrow the cell phone of a passerby so she could call her fiancé, but she could not remember the number, handed the phone back, and disappeared. Here is her story. Family searching for clues after indigenous mother disappears in Las Vegas. Lumi Reservation, Washington State. Family and friends continue to search for the answers and clues in the disappearance of 30-year-old indigenous mother of two, last seen in Las Vegas, where she had gone with friends and family and her fiancé to get married. Reatha May Finkbonner was last seen September 3rd, and according to her family, an unidentified woman outside the motel was the last person to encounter her when Finkbonner asked to use her phone. Her friends and fiancé returned to Washington State without her. Finkbonner, Nikki Finkbonner, tells Cairo News, Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department detectives are combing over casino surveillance footage, along with video from the Strip and a popular Fremont Street, to look for any signs of her niece. On the Lumi Reservation, Nikki gathered with friends and family to make a memorial and plea Wednesday evening, when now considered a missing person. Reatha joins a growing number of indigenous women falling into that category. In the wake of the search that garnered national attention for Gabby Patino, the woman found dead in Wyoming, with investigators now searching for her fiancé in Florida Natural Preserve, many have pointed out the fact that Native women, especially, don't receive a fraction of the coverage or spotlight. We're not invisible, said Candace Wilson. We're still here. We may be missing, but we're still here. Our indigenous women are indigenous people who matter. The foundation that she works for and works along with the Lumina Foundation on a number of affairs. The tribal-led nonprofit has reached out to the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women's Foundation, the MMIW group, to spread awareness of Reatha's disappearance. According to Washington State Patrol, there are currently 115 women of indigenous who are missing and presumed to be in danger. 57 were reported in 2021 alone. The Attorney General's office recently began forming what's known as the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and People Task Force. Tribal communities and indigenous organizations, grassroots activists, have been forming to do this work for various capacities for a very long time, said Annie Frosman Adams, who serves as a task force policy analysis and is a member of the Snoqualmie tribe. The task force will be made up of 21 members, including those of tribes as well as state lawmakers. It will be tasked with addressing systemic inequalities and digging into the cases behind the high rate of disappearances within the indigenous communities. The appointment process is still underway, and some members, it will produce its first reports to the legislature in August of next year. She says that she encourages them to come forward and tell their stories, which helps investigators in discovering the actual whereabouts of their loved ones and what may have happened to them. When it comes to the media, she says, sometimes those stories are either too complex or there isn't enough detail, so the media just skips on by and never reports them at all, or only glancingly talks about a missing person from a reservation. When we can show up for all victims and all relatives that way, we can make really big things happen, said Frosman Adams. Communities have the power to enforce people to pay attention. So I really hope we continue to show up for all the victims in those ways. Age 30, approximately 5'5", 150 pounds. Brown hair with blonde highlights in her hair. She was last seen in the proximity on Fremont Street in front of the casinos, walking along. No one was with her. No one followed her, according to the eyewitness statement, where she tried to borrow a cell phone. She seemed like maybe she was lost and wasn't sure which hotel she was going to, according to the one woman who was the last person to see her. But she's gone. She has vanished in plain sight in the middle of the afternoon on Fremont Street in Las Vegas. She grows an ever-growing list of women of indigenous heritage who have disappeared in the United States. Again, we need to help find her. Please, if you are in the Las Vegas area or were in Las Vegas and you may have seen her on September 3rd or thereabouts, please call the 1-800 number that is on your screen right now. Thank you.